Stories in games often contextualize the reason why you want to play them to begin with, which is why mostly I've always ended up going into a deeper discussion about the games and their stories. As I feel that if a game's story is lacking, then it fails to engage them right off the bat to make them want to get to know the game and what it has to offer. To give you a good example of a game that does this right, for example, Ratchet & Clank. It gives its players the right motivation and context to make you want to go to the journey and see it all the way through the end. To give a good example of a game that fails to do this properly, The Last of Us Part 2, as the main story of the game has to betray its characters in order to get itself going, as it leaves its players confused and mostly distraught after what the fuck they just saw, and wondering what the reason would be to keep going after seeing such tripe bullshit, but that's a story for another time. As most of the games in Nintendo's lineup usually subvert this feeling, like 2013 Super Mario 3D World ported to the Switch with faster mobility, and Bowser's Fury released in February 2021, and I didn't care. No, seriously. Not because it was a bad game or anything, but because in 2017 when the hurricane hit, I did nothing but play Super Mario 3D World to its completion in my friend's Wii U. Except for doing every single course with every single character. Fuck that. Who do you think I am? The finishist? Nah! I had a life to get back to. Well, as much as life that you can have after the hurricane destroyed your entire island. And ever since then I was burnt out in the game, and given the fact that it was also the 6th Mario game released year after year after year after year after year, it had me burnt out on Mario for the longest time. Seeing Mario everywhere, from New Soup Wii to New Soup U to fucking New Soup 2 on the 3DS, 3D Land as well, everything just stopped. It had me burnt out to hell. They were just starting to look like the exact same goddamn game with zero style to call their own. And even when people got a glimpse of 3D World, people were more apathetic about the poor little guy, since it seemed like just your average ass Mario game we've seen time and time again.
Super Mario 3D World!
With its big band score, cool looking levels, and catsuit, I was all in. And even though I didn't have a Wii U thanks to my friend lending me hers, I enjoyed it. It was pretty good. And then I went back to it once more with the Switch port that I bought in order to show off comparisons to Tak 3. And honestly, I was hooked on the game again. Given that all the levels in the game were just extremely fun to run through and explore and complete once more, and it had me smiling all the way to the end, until the end game. You see, Bowser comes out in the beginning, captures these cute little pixie ladies, and then you do your regular Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess Peach thing to save them all, and once you do, the end game starts. You're taken to space with this massive rocket that the pixies built for you and the crew, which a few levels in introduces a new character to your lineup. Mommy! I mean, Rosalina. Which now, unlike her Wii U version, is actually usable now that she's relatively quick. Which in the first release of this game in the Wii U, she was absolutely the worst character since she was extremely slow. It wasn't fun. But now she's absolutely great, and I absolutely love playing as her. Anyways, you're doing harder and trickier levels from the original game, and even some new ones thrown in there for good measure too. And if you're like me and collected every single green star in every single goddamn level, then you would proceed through the end game with zero issues whatsoever. But if you were like my friend and only collecting those green stars that were only visible to you and not looking for them at all, then you would have more of a problem reaching the end game and all of its levels. Since the star requirements become higher and higher, and the more that you don't collect, the more you gotta suffer through revisiting all the levels, scouring for every single green star once again. If you were my friend, you'd be completely fucked. But if you are me, and just do that based out of habit because you can't help yourself but collect everything in every single level, then you would be honestly completely fine and get to experience what I consider to be the best part of this entire game. Maybe it's just me and my gamer body that allows me to complete every single level with no problems and just glide through them like Ray the Flying Squirrel. But since these post-game levels ramp up the difficulty, I had a little trouble with at least one of them. Well, 2 of them. But other than that, it was honestly a slight breeze, and the only other problem that I had was in the final level, where a small problem that I noticed is that the game eats your inputs when you're doing the boost pads and will often lead you to your death. In that case, it's really not the player's fault and more the developers not taking this into consideration when developing the further levels that rely on this mechanic. But other than that, that's really the only problem, and not to mention that the Joy-Cons also suck, and my Joy-Cons had been experiencing a lot of issues with this game and eating up my inputs for zero reason whatsoever because they are brand new. $70 Joy-Cons, they're brand new and they're eating my inputs in the middle of the game, leading me to get killed. Isn't that fun? But even with those small hiccups, even though one of them is not actually their fault, this game is honestly feature packed for every single player and every single skill level. And if you're a completionist like me, then you'll enjoy and relish over the extra content that you get the more you complete every single other level in the game. And it's nice to see that extra content being developed for those players that really want to test themselves, instead of being like, for example, Game Freak, where their Pokemon games sometimes don't have a meaningful post game because quote unquote people don't have enough time. What the fuck? Disregarding the fact that the people that are going to buy your game are your loyal fans that want to dedicate hours into your game and want to experience everything that you put into it to begin with. Leaving a post game out for the simple reason that a minority of people will not get to experience it is honestly quite sad, and it's something that I am glad that not every single Nintendo franchise seems to agree with, like this game. And for another recent example, Tag 3, because while the challenges in the game, and more so the later game, were challenging, yes, it didn't give you any extra challenges to really test yourself and your honed skills. Instead, once you finish the game, the extra post game that you have is just do the levels again, but faster. And it's a little sad that the game with refined mechanics such as Tag 3 doesn't include extra levels for those players looking for the challenge. And it's honestly something that I failed to acknowledge in my previous video, since I used Super Mario 3D World to compare it to, but didn't give it enough chance to stand out on its own. And now I am, and honestly, I'm glad for it. Which is a shame that a game like Tag 3 that offers you great mechanics and refined gameplay don't offer the set of challenges that those players want to invest themselves in, and those players that wish to go deeper in the game for that extra challenge. Instead, nowadays, those players that are looking for that extra challenge have to pay $30 for an expansion pack to offer more content that should have been there from the beginning. But I digress, as it's a good thing that Super Mario 3D World gives its players that extra challenge if they so wish to partake on it, and if they don't, then don't worry about it. You finished the game and you did everything that you could, and that's fine. And that extra challenge is there if you ever really want to go deeper into the game and experience everything that it has to offer. As post-game should be, it should be an option, not a paid expansion, Pokemon. And all because players don't have enough time to play the game that they bought and want to spend a lot of time playing. Oh my god. And now with its Sudowoodo expansion, Bowser's Fury gives its players even more content for those wishing to come back throughout a second romp across this Sprixie Kingdom. And that's going to be what we're tackling next. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, as we are going to go throughout Bowser's Fury next time. Cause we sure as hell ain't done yet.